Greetings and welcome to Road to Guitar Mastery, the ongoing show where I attempt to master the guitar by breaking it down into its most fundamental pieces. In today's episode, we will be looking at the various ways we can resolve or end a chord progression. These methods are known as cadences in music theory and are often separated into a few different categories, so let's go over them now. In the complete cadence category, we firstly have perfect authentic cadences, PACs, which are considered the strongest resolution or the cadence that sounds most finished. This is the result of a 5 chord resolving to a 1 chord, both in root position, where the melody or highest voice note and bass or lowest voice note end on the tonic or root note. Imperfect authentic cadences, or IACs, are considered weaker because either the chords are inverted or in a different note order, or the 5 chord is replaced with a variation of the 7 chord. The last complete cadence type is a plagal cadence, which is where the subdominant, meaning the 4 or 2 chord, resolves to the 1 chord. Then we have the incomplete cadences that don't feel finished, which could be a half cadence, meaning you have a prolonged 5 chord that does not resolve, or a deceptive cadence that resolves somewhere unexpected, like the 4 or 6 chords. For this video, however, we will be solely looking at examples of completed cadence shapes on the guitar, so let's get into it. This first cadence is probably the most basic PAC shape, where you go from a bar A major 5 chord shape to the 5-7, then finally resolve it to the E major bar shape 2 frets lower. It's a good practice to think about chords as multiple individual voices played at the same time, and to think about the voice leading or how each part moves to create a pleasing resolution. In this example, you get a lovely walk down from the 5th scale degree to the 4th, which holds tension that then resolves to the major 3rd of the 1 chord. This next cadence uses a jazz 5-7 chord shape resolving to the same E major bar shape from before. As a quick side note, the most efficient method I have found for learning new chord shapes is to simply go back and forth between 2 chords ad nauseum. As with most elements of guitar mastery, it's a repetition game, so we simply need to acquire as many accurate repetitions as possible. Note that this will probably take longer than one might first envision, but after you experience mastery at one thing, the preceding challenges become exponentially easier. Anyways, as far as voice leading is concerned, this cadence would be considered an imperfect authentic cadence because the 5 chord is in second inversion, meaning that the 5th of the chord is the lowest voice note, which then resolves down to the root of the 1 chord. We can then observe how the 7 resolves up to the root and how the 4th resolves down to the 3rd. The next IAC uses 2 7 chord shapes bouncing back and forth to our 1 chord. Typically, it's a good idea to keep the number of voices relatively consistent, so for this cadence, I would put more weight on the lower strings, considering that second 7 chord shape does not utilize the top 2 strings. In my opinion, the coolest voice leading in this progression is the blue line, where it goes from the 4th down to the 3rd, down to the 2nd, then back up to the 3rd. This voice leading combined with the other voices makes a solid resolution. Here are 2 more 7 chord shapes to give you a cool walk-up IAC. The red path outlines this awesome walk-up from the 6th to the 7th, finally to our 1. Also note that you can often think of the 4th either resolving to the 5th or the 3rd, the 3rd being the strongest option considering it's only a half step away, but it just depends on how you would like to hear it. This next example is the same resolution, only up an octave. The blue path outlines the same 6-7-1 walk-up. Now we have a 7-7 flat 5 or half diminished 7th going to a fully diminished 7th, which you might borrow from the parallel harmonic minor scale. This is one of my personal favorites because of the chromatic walk down from the 6th to the flat 6th, finally resolving to the 5th of our 1 chord. Here's the same progression with the higher octave chord shapes. In this example, the 1 chord is using the C major bar chord shape, by the way. Our last 7/1 cadence example hails from our natural minor scale, where we have the major flat 7 going to our minor 1 chord. This is an example where the number of voices remains consistent, where you have 6 notes in each chord. Next up, let's look at our plagal or subdominant cadences. In this example, the plagal cadence occurs when the 4 chord at the end of the progression repeats back to the 1 chord. This progression is very common and might be used if you were to, say, make a TV show about the workplace or something. I personally enjoy the 4th resolving to the root and the 6th resolving either to the 5th or the root. This is also commonly referred to as the Amen cadence because of its heavy influence in choral hymns. This next plagal example is probably one of my favorite sounds in music. You go from the major 4 chord, borrow the minor 4 from the natural minor scale, then resolve to the major 1 chord. Here's a short example of this progression used in one of my first songs, Fireflies.
I can't describe what it feels like to watch you fly away. It's something that I deal with every day.
Notice the chromatic walk down from the 6th to the flat 6th to the 5th, the same walk down from that diminished 7th progression earlier. Here's an example of a 2/1 plagal cadence. You play the 2 minor 7 chord followed by the 2 minor 6, which you may notice is the same shape as the 7 half diminished chord from earlier, resolving to the 1. My favorite voice leading is the red 1-7-1 path. For this last segment, let's look at some miscellaneous endings for progressions. A Picardy Third is where you are in a minor scale and resolve to a major 1 chord, kind of like this example. It gives the resolution an uplifting flavor when you implement this technique. This would also be a good time to note that all the previously mentioned resolutions work in both major and minor keys, so feel free to throw in Picardy Thirds anywhere as you wish. Here's a cool resolution borrowing from the double harmonic major scale. The flat 2 and flat 6 resolving to their neighbors 1 fret down gives you this sharp sounding jazzy cadence. In the double harmonic major scale, which I will discuss further in a future video, you lower the 2nd and 6th scale degrees from the major scale. This example shows the 2-5-1 cadence in this scale. The key resolution happens from the flat 2 moving to the root. As a final bonus, and because I think it sounds really cool, you can also lower the 7th scale degree from the double harmonic major scale to create the Phrygian Major scale and use the same 2-5-1 progression to create this awesome resolution. All 15 of these cadence examples will be available at my MeWe and Patreon pages linked down below, so get a copy if you'd like to add these cool sounds to your toolbox. I hope this video was helpful, and as always, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have in the comment section. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone.
What it feels like to watch you fly away.